Καλησπέρα και καλώς ήρθατε σε άλλη μια λέξη εκφραστικής ανάγνωσης εν μέσω κορονοϊού 2020. Laurence Sterne, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman, Volume 8. Chapter 1. But softly, for in these sportive plains, and under this genial sun, where at this instant all flesh is running out piping, fiddling and dancing to the vintage, and every step that's taken the judgment is surprised by the imagination, I defy, notwithstanding all that has been said upon straight lines in sundry pages of my book, I defy the best cabbage planter that ever existed, whether he plants backwards or forwards. It makes little difference in the account, except that he will have more to answer for in the one case than in the other. I defy him to go on coolly, critically, and canonically, planting his cabbages one by one, in straight lines and stoical distances, especially if slits in petticoats are unsewed up, without ever and anon straddling out or sidling into some bastardly digression in Friesland, Fogland, and some other lands I wot of. It may be done. But in this clear climate of fantasy and perspiration, where every idea, sensible and insensible, gets vent, in this land, my dear Eugenius, in this fertile land of chivalry and romance where I now sit, unscrewing my inkhorn to ride my Uncle Toby's amours, and with all the meanders of Julia's track in quest of her Diego in full view of my study window, if thou comest not and takest me by the hand, what a work is it likely to turn out? Let us begin it. Chapter 2. It is with love as with cuckoldom, but now I am talking of beginning a book, and have long had a thing upon my mind to be imparted to the reader, which, if not imparted now, can never be imparted to him as long as I live, whereas the comparison may be imparted to him any hour in the day. I'll just mention it, and begin in good earnest. The thing is this, that of all the several ways of beginning a book which are now in practice throughout the known world, I am confident my own way of doing it is the best. I'm sure it is the most religious, for I begin with writing the first sentence, and trusting to Almighty God for the second. 'Twould cure an author for ever of the fuss and folly of opening his street door, and calling in his neighbours and friends and kinsfolk with the devil and all his imps, with their hammers and engines, etc., only to observe how one sentence of mine follows another, and how the plan follows the whole. I wish you saw me half starting out of my chair, with what confidence, as I grasp the elbow of it, I look up, catching the idea, even sometimes before it half-way reaches me. I believe in my conscience I intercept many a thought which heaven intended for another man. Pope and his portrait are fools to me. No martyr is ever so full of faith or fire. I wish I could say of good works too, but I have no zeal or anger or zeal. And till gods and men agree together to call it by the same name, the errantest Tartuffe, in science, in politics, or in religion, shall never kindle a spark within me, or have a worse word, or a more unkind greeting, than what he would read in the next chapter. Chapter 3. Bonjour, good morrow. So you have got your cloak on betimes? But 'tis a cold morning, and you judge the matter rightly. 'Tis better to be well mounted than go afoot, and obstructions in the glands are dangerous. And how goes it with thy concubine, thy wife, and thy little ones o' both sides? And when did you hear from the old gentleman and lady, your sister, aunt, uncle, and cousins? I hope they have got better of their colds, coughs, claps, toothaches, fevers, stranguries, sciaticas, swellings, and sore eyes. What a devil of an apothecary, to take so much blood, give such a vile purge, puke, poultice, plaister, nitrode, blister, and why so many grains of calomel, Santa Maria, and such a dose of opium, periclitating, party, the whole family of ye from head to tail, by my great Aunt Dinah's old black velvet mask. I think there was no occasion for it. Now this being a little bold about the chin, by frequently putting off and on, before she was got with child by the coachman, and one of her family would wear it after, to cover the mask afresh was more than the mask was worth, and to wear a mask which was bold, or which could be half seen through, was as bad as having no mask at all. This is the reason, may it please your reverences, that in all our numerous family for these 4 generations we count no more than 1 archbishop, a Welsh judge, some 3 or 4 aldermen, and a single mountebank. In the 16th century we boast of no less than a dozen alchemists. Chapter 4. It is with love as with cuckoldom. The suffering party is at least the third, but generally the last in the house who knows anything about the matter. This comes, as all the world knows, from having half a dozen words for one thing, and so long as what in this vessel of the human frame is love may be hatred in that sentiment half a yard higher, and nonsense. No, madam, not there. I mean at the part I am now pointing to with my forefinger. How can we help ourselves? Of all mortal and immortal men too, if you please, who ever soliloquized upon this mystic subject, my Uncle Toby was the worst fitted to have pushed his researches through such a contention of feelings, and he had infallibly let them all run on, as we do worse matters, to see what they would turn out. Had not Bridget's pre-notification of them to Susanna, and Susanna's repeated manifestos thereupon to all the world, made it necessary for my Uncle Toby to look into the affair. Chapter 5. Why weavers, gardeners, and gladiators, or a man with a pined leg, proceeding from some ailment in the foot, should ever have had some tender nymph breaking her heart in secret for them, are points well and duly settled and accounted for by ancient and modern physiologists. A water drinker, provided he is a professed one, and does it without fraud or covin, is precisely in the same predicament. Not that, at first sight, there is any consequence or show of logic in it. That rill of cold water dribbling through my inward parts should light up a torch in my Jenny's. The proposition does not strike one. On the contrary, it seems to run opposite to the natural workings of causes and effects. But it shows the weakness and imbecility of human reason. And in perfect good health with it? The most perfect, madam, that friendship herself could wish me, and drink nothing but water, impetuous fluid, the moment thou presses against the floodgates of the brain. See how they give way. In swims curiosity, beckoning to her damsels to follow. They dive into the centre of the current. Fancy sits musing upon the bank, and with her eyes following the stream, turns straws and bulrushes into masts and bowsprits. And Desire, with a vest held up to the knee in one hand, snatches at them as they swim by her with the other. O ye water drinkers, is it then by this delusive fountain that ye have so often governed and turned this world about like a mill-wheel, grinding the faces of the impotent, be-powdering their ribs, be-peppering their noses, and changing sometimes even the very frame and face of nature? If I was you, quoth Yorick, I would drink more water, Eugenius. And if I was you, Yorick, replied Eugenius, so would I. Which shows they had both read Longinus. For my own part, I am resolved never to read any book but my own, as long as I live. Calabra.